Welcome to another Coffee with Samso, where we speak with ASX companies about the stories and the journey. We're at the UWA club here in Crawley, in the University of Western Australia. And today we've got Ed Turner coming back on to Coffee with Samso to tell us about what's been happening at Lake Kungari. It's a new discovery, exciting story, in my opinion. Welcome, Ed.
Thanks, Noel. It's good to be back.
Yeah, long time we haven't had you back on the show.
Yeah.
Look, Ed, it's a discovery, right?
Absolutely. It's been, I would say, a long time in the making, but over 12 months ago we identified the numerous targets there, in particular what is now named the Sir Lawrence discovery.
Not Sir Ed.
No, we name it after the geologist who did the targeting. I just backed him up basically,
Okay.
and agreed that that was the highest priority target. And we had to wait quite a long time to get a track-mounted lake air core rig. They're very few and far between. And finally, we got Raglan drilling from Kalgoorlie out there, and on the very first line of drilling across that main target, it's a lithostructural target. We had gold in 12 holes over about more than 400 metres of strike length. Oh, well, it actually looks like it's a cross strike, so that's even more exciting. So for first pass air core drilling, that's exceptional results.
Yeah, when I looked at your announcement, I looked at the plan, the drill plan, and the first thing that came to my mind was almost every hole on that line had something.
Yeah.
And they were all showing the same thing, like what you have, right?
Yeah.
So when you guys are targeting in terms of this kind of project, obviously you were chasing that structure.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yes. Yeah, there's multiple structures there. What attracted us to that particular target area is the similarities with Canal Bell. So when I say lithostructural targets, that has the same geological host rocks, this Polymictic Conglomerate, but also these late cross-cutting D4 faults, which are typically associated with the gold deposits in that part of the world. And so that gave us quite a bit of confidence. And there was a larger amount of faults, cross faults, than normal. There's a lot of them going through that particular part of the lake. So that bumped that target up to the top of the list, basically. And also earlier in the year we did some pitting samples, which is like a geochem sample. Under the lakes you can't do soil samples, but Larry went out and actually dug down below. There's a gypsum layer, sits down about half a metre to a metre below the lake sediments. Underneath that you have the in situ older material, which is millions of years old, and we took some multi-element geochem samples from there, and we had a 360 parts per billion result. So that's very high for geochem, as you would know, in first pass.
How deep was this, sorry?
Only about a metre and a half down.
Okay. Yep.
But we couldn't do systematic sampling because it took over an hour to dig each of these pit samples, but we had another one nearby, and that was 110 parts per billion. So that gave us more confidence in the structural setting, and that's right above the discovery holes on that first line, on line 5. So we were aware of this for a long time, but we couldn't actually get the drill rig, and then we finally did, and we got results straight away. So that gives us a lot of confidence in our modelling and the targeting. And also when we did do the first line of drilling, we got into the bedrock under 80 metres of the lake sediments. We got a very strong alteration package of chloride and silica, which means that the primary mineralisation is there or very nearby.
I mean, the Lake Kungari has been there for decades, or a long time than us. Why hasn't this been followed up? Is it I understand in the previous it was very hard to get onto the lakes, and maybe there were more cream off the lakes. But what was It's
certainly much more difficult exploring under the lakes, and even the lake rig, which is 2.5 metre wide tracks. We got that bogged a few times.
Oh, on this trip?
Yeah, but we had a lot of winter rain this year, so fairly high rainfalls. It'll be drying out more and more now, so it won't be such an issue to drill through the summer unless we have a cyclone. But we're 4 kilometres from the shore of the lake. There are challenges, even with support vehicles, getting the right support vehicles. So There's a lot that goes into it. It does cost more than exploration, similar drilling programs on dry land.
Yep.
So there's a lot of boards of directors that won't support that higher risk
Yes.
style of exploration, but I managed to convince them that the targets were real, and if we're going to find a multi-million ounce deposit, it was more likely to be at that location than on the dry land, based on we've got some very good targets on the dry land as well, and we've had a discovery in the south end of the project along strike from Aphrodite. But the real blue sky was out there under the lakes, which hasn't been touched.
We've had discussion previously as well, and I've always said that it feels like the last frontier is in the lakes, and we've already got a few examples, like Lefroy, and then you got Musgrave and things like that, and even going back, there were people starting to find it, but again, I think it's the cost of getting out there that's probably the prohibitive.
Yeah, it's been too costly for junior companies in the past. There's only maybe the bigger companies could have justified the budgets, but it's becoming more cost, effective, more cost competitive nowadays. There are more rigs available, even though there's still a limited amount. But people realise, the easy goal's been found, as you know, and you have to go to the more remote areas. And in Lake Lefroy's a good example. St Ives, the smaller deposits were on the dry land and the big stuff was under the lake. So, and I think that's because the bigger structures are under the lakes, and that's why the lakes are there. They're all paleo drainage channels, or old, some of them would have been old river systems associated with the major structures.
I thought, it's like you just said, right? The lakes are there for a reason. It is a lake for a reason, and that's not sort of new theories, right? But when we look at all the lakes, do you feel like this could open up? Mind you, you have Aphrodite next to it, so you knew this was a endowed area.
Yeah.
And whether the question was whether the endowment is multiple endowments or just one.
Yeah. Well, in the case of Aphrodite, that's on a different strike line, if you like. It's on a different contact. That is on the Golden Mile dolerite, a black flag sediment contact further to the west of this target we're drilling out in the middle of the lake. But that contact goes all the way down to the Golden Mile and Kalgoorlie. So we know that trend, and that trend goes under the lake as well. And we've tested some of that trend under the lake. In this program, we don't have the results for that yet. So that's a very good trend. The one that we drilled first is a different host rock. It's part of the black flag sediments, but it's a different setting, and there's a lot more structures running through that target. And we've only tested a small part of it. We've got another 1.5 kilometres of very attractive cross faults that goes through that conglomerate to still drill in the next round of drilling.
I mean, look, we always talked about the Northern Lunar Belt being so big, and looking at previous discoveries. I mean, it doesn't surprise me that you've got a different host, you've got a different mythology, that you would find mineralisation. And we looked at some of the, when we were looking at research notes and stuff, there's so many different types of deformation events and depositional events that you couldn't rule out. I mean, look, Golden Cities was, who would have thought it was in there, 30 years ago, maybe 40 years ago. So, in terms of what you've learned, does that encourage you to find that, like what you've said, this trend goes here, and does that encourage you that you actually have certain size talking now?
Based on the similarities between Canowna Bell, I'll go back to, again, that's a 6.5 million ounce deposit. It looks at this stage very similar to that, and the footprint of Canowna Bell was only 500 metres by about 250 metres. So that's not very big when you consider that for that size deposit. It goes down over 1 kilometre in depth. So at this stage, the drilling we've done matches our model, which was the Canowna Bell model. It might turn out to be different, but we're highly encouraged by what we've seen so far, and we're only really just scratching the surface. So quite a bit of the gold we intersected was actually in what we call a deep lead at the base of the lake sediments, and sands and quartz gravels basically. So it's like a buried alluvial deposit, but then we did hit bedrock mineralisation underneath as well, and that's in the highly altered material I mentioned. So there are other examples of deep leads. Kanowna is one of them, near to nearby Kanowna Bell, and they typically are close to the primary source, and they can help us back towards the primary source, although in this case it looks like we're probably sitting right on top of it.
How deep do you think this will be, and you know, I'm sort of putting words in your mouth, like how deep do you think, and potentially what could you be looking at, you know?
If this is a big deposit, it'll go down over 1 kilometre. That's what we expect, and that's typical for the Eastern Goldfields, not just in this style of deposit, but you know, right through you know, the rest of the Eastern Goldfields. If you have a good sized deposit, it will have deep roots. So, but we don't really know how big it could be at this stage. I'm encouraged by the 400 metres of mineralisation across strike as we interpret right now, but we don't actually really know the orientation of the primary mineralisation, right? So we've got a diamond rig booked in for about next month, and we'll get that to, like we did at Mezies, get oriented diamond core to intersect the primary mineralisation deeper down, and then we can figure out the geometry of the deposit, and then we'll have a much better idea about the size and which way to step out.
I know we keep talking about it, but the amount of, like that line particularly, where I think almost I counted maybe only 2 that maybe it may not have hit mineralisation, but you had 12 holes, you said, right?
That's right.
So in any exploration program, when you very seldom see this.
Yeah.
You might be lucky to get 1 or 2.
Well, we have to remember, air core is just designed to detect the mineralisation. It's not designed to, so you can't drill through fresh rock, right? So you drill through the difficult drilling terrains, the regolith, transported overburden, and in this case we got 10 metres of bedrock on average in each hole, and so you don't get the overlap. There's gaps basically across that line. Yep. So to hit gold of +1 gram per tonne in 12 holes is extremely high success rate. Yeah. The chances of us drilling along following the mineralised structure is almost impossible. If the mineralisation was going east-west, yeah. It's almost you know, yeah. It's almost impossible. So the chances are that it's striking north, west, southeast, or north, south. But the veins within there could be going in different directions. So, but to hit any primary mineralisation of that tenor in the first round of drilling it's highly unusual. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially when I look at, you know, the target that you were chasing. Some of these holes were actually off the main high of that. So that must be, and I guess, you know, it could be anything. We're postulating now.
Yeah.
But it would be encouraging, right? Or discouraging, or maybe, oh, geez, maybe we got something a bit different from what we thought. Is that something that's in your head?
We have to keep a very open mind. I mean, back to Kanowna Bell, there's mineralisation going in different directions as well. So there's the main trend, and then there's cross-cutting trend. So you have oblique mineralised veins, as well as multiple stacked sets of veins within the heart of the ore body, if you like, or multiple ore bodies. Yeah, so we've got to keep an open mind at this point in time. So we do the diamond drilling, we do more air core drilling along strike, because there's other targets within 1 kilometre, or over a strike length of about a kilometre and a half in total. We're sort of in the middle. And then when we figure out the orientation, then we can do more detailed pattern RC drilling. And also we need to figure out exactly what the average depth of cover is. So we might be right in the centre of the channel right now. So it won't all be. We don't expect to be all 80 metres deep of overburden. So we'll figure all that out in time. But we need to do a lot more drilling.
I remember coming out of uni around, you know, and studying during uni in the late 80s, and coming on to work in the early 90s. 80 metre cover was the norm for most of the goldfield exploration. It was just, and it was then that the major discoveries were happening over that 2 decades, right? This 80 metre cover that you're talking about, could that be your saviour? the reason that you have what you have?
Well, it's probably a large reason why it hasn't been discovered before. Yeah, it's 80 metres is a lot if there's a small deposit there. If it's a big deposit, it's no problem at all.
Yeah.
It's easy to remove. It's not a problem. It's just
it's been done before, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's not an issue at all.
Yeah. And so what's happening in Mezies for you guys?
Well, we're still plugging away at Mezies. We've announced a high-grade underground resource for Yundega recently. So, and that was limited by the depth of drilling, average about 100 metres below the current open pit. So we've got nearly 80,000 ounces at 3.7 grams per tonne, or nearly 60,000 ounces at 4.6 grams per tonne. So that's in the same place as the previous lower grade open pit resource, but we decided to look at the potential to mine that from underground. The pit and the ramp and that are still in very good condition there, so it'd be easy to put a decline in and access that, and then drill it out more from underground and keep on proving the resource deeper and deeper and deeper. So the Yundega has a Princess May chute, for example, that went down to 600 vertical metres, so we know some of these chutes once again go to really, really quite deep. So we're looking at trying to commercialise not just Yundega, but some of the other deposits and get them into production, get some cash flow happening. So yeah, we're up to 475,000 ounces in resource total now, and in time we'll just keep on adding to that. But yeah, the main objective now is to monetise some of those assets basically.
Yeah, I guess, that always reminds me of all the underground plays that's happening around. It just goes on forever,
Yeah, they do. I mean, if you've got the big systems with, the shear zones which go for tens of kilometres,
yeah,
and you've got mineralisation, in the systems within that, which are kilometres long, then you're going to have high-grade chutes within those kilometre-long systems, which go very, very deep.
Yeah,
that's just normal for that part of the world.
I think you've almost shown that it will go deep because you're still finding stuff there. So, and these things don't have a habit of cutting off.
No, they might be faulted off, displaced.
Yeah,
but then they'll start again, or new shoots start.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's a bit like putting together the 3D jigsaw puzzle, but with 90% of the pieces missing. So it's a challenge at times, but we're making progress.
Yeah. Look, going back to your Lake Kongara stuff. I mean, in your announcement, you did talk about this polymetallic conglomerate that you mentioned before, right?
Polymictic.
Sorry. Can you give us share your thoughts on how good is that, obviously, or as opposed to what other things are?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Like you mentioned, there's mineralisation in lots of different settings in the eastern goldfields, but this has been one of those host rocks which has largely been overlooked by a lot of companies. Often you're chasing the dolerites or the basalts, and stay away from the granites, but porphyries, now we see more and more significance applied to those. If we have those intruding as well, they're a good heat source and potentially related to the mineralisation. This conglomerate in particular, we just know it's good because of the way it fractures and it's brittle. You have a mix of different rocks basically caught up in that conglomerate.
Yep.
And so when the structure's ripped through it, it's suitable for allowing the gold fluids, the hydrothermal fluids, to flood in and create some very big deposits.
Yep. Okay, I guess with the deep leap process, and you had a table 1 that's in your announcement. You talk about the interface and the composites.
Yeah.
Maybe just go through that, because I think that's an interesting part of the story that needs to be explained.
Yeah, it's a very important part. We can't drill everything to bedrock for all of the targets as much as we'd like, or instead of a 6,000 metre drilling program, it would have been a 30,000 metre drilling program. So we drilled the deeper holes to bedrock, basically to blade refusal on our targets we had the highest confidence in. So there was 5 or 6 of those lines. Mm-hmm. We're still waiting for most of those results to come back. And for the rest of the targets, we just drilled these short geochem holes. As we say, I mentioned the 360 parts per billion anomaly previously. So we know that the geochem sampling can work if you get below that gypsum layer.
Yep.
So we just we call it an interface sample. Get below there, sample the first metre of in situ material, and then use that and do a low level multi-element suite of assays. And because we might be 100 or 200 metres away from the primary source, but we'll get some gold leached out and transported, and will give some indication. Or there might be pathfinder elements like arsenic or something else which might be associated with the mineralisation. Even if we don't actually see gold, we can see these other trends, and that gives us more confidence to go back and do closer spaced, deeper air core drilling after that.
Okay. And I guess, when we're talking about composites, and I've noticed some of your composites were quite high. I think they were like 4 grams or something like that.
Oh, we had 6 grams.
So that must give you encouragement, because
Yeah, so that's a 4 metre sample usually. Yeah, and once again, it's to save money. Instead of putting all 4 separate single metre samples in, we combine them, and once again, it's just to see if there's any gold there. The actual quantum, if you like, the tenor is not the most important thing. It's just to prove that we've got gold there. But we had 4 metres at 7 grams, I think, was the highest in there. So yeah, it's very high grade for a composite, first pass composite.
And you just did the composites, or you guys got splits coming in?
We do some splits later on to see what the individual metres
but
are.
It's told you the
but
story.
It doesn't really matter, because we've got the logs anyway. The geological logs. It helps see the distribution of the gold in more detail, but for air core drilling it doesn't really matter. The composites are sufficient, and the interface samples are.
I guess it's already told you that there's gold there.
That's right.
Whether it's high or lower, it doesn't make any difference.
No, that's right.
You're really testing for mineralisation. That was your first prize, right?
Yeah.
The rest is a bonus.
Anything above 0.1 grams per tonne in the first pass would be significant.
Yeah. Okay. So for those eager beaver investors out there, what's going forward? What's the plan, and what's in store?
Well, I've already planned about 1,000 metres of diamond core, and we're still deciding exactly what orientation to put those holes on, in and around the discovery line. And about 6,000 metres of air core drilling following the conglomerate unit, where those D4 structures cut across it, north and south of the discovery line. And then we'll be budgeting for follow-up RC drilling, assuming we get good results. I'm very confident we'll get more good results. And then we need to more pattern drill the thing when we can get an RC rig later in the year.
Okay. I don't know whether you mentioned before in the discussion today, but were you able to figure out some sort of orientation of that conglomerate?
Yeah, we know the orientation of conglomerate because it shows up on the magnetics.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's north-south, and so it's mostly just to the east of where we hit the gold in the first line. Well, what attracted us to that structural target was we can see where the conglomerate's actually been displaced by those faults. It's actually been shunted across to the northwest. So most of the intersections in that first line were actually off the main trend, still within the conglomerate, but the whole conglomerate unit's been faulted across. So that's where you've got very powerful structures. And there are more of those faults further to the south, which also really interfere with the conglomerate. So we can follow the conglomerate easy enough. We're very fortunate there because it's got a distinctive magnetic signature.
Well, that's good. I mean, look, I always love this kind of stories. As I said to you before we started, that I wish we had a discussion prior, and then Samso can say, I told you so. But look, when you talked about the Lake Gungarra before, we had previous discussions, and I always said that this could potentially be your next. It's a good thing, because I always said lakes is the last frontier. It's the next part where most people haven't gone, and I always say, the lake is the lake because there's a reason it's a lake, right? The structure's a big player. Right?
So I did tell you so.
Well, I'm trying to imply that I did tell you so, but look, any last words to the guys out there? I know you guys had a roller coaster with your share price, and some people say it's rightly or wrongly, but what would you say to these guys?
Oh, well, I'm very happy with the response so far. on the with our share price, and people are taking notice finally of what we're doing. Still don't think we're fully valued for our resources at Mezies and the discovery, but that will come in time.
Yeah.
Well, we've got to back it up with more results, and I'm very confident that we will do, and this year.
Yeah, I think it's exciting times. I mean, from an exploration geologist, it's when you see something like that, you get woken up and you go, oh,
well,
geez.
This is what we do the job for, really. This is the fun part.
Yeah,
for an exploration geologist.
Yeah, I think, like you've been in the industry a long time, and I'm pretty sure you've looked at a lot of assays coming back, and the numbers are not so nice.
Yeah.
And what was your reaction when you saw the numbers?
Oh, I was rapt, of course, because I was very confident we'd see something just based on the visuals from the logging, and when Larry's calling me from the lake, telling me they were seeing this really intense chloride and silica alteration right below where we had the geochem anomaly.
Yeah.
I said, right, I'm sure we're going to get some results. I didn't expect it in 12 holes on the first line. That was
I'm pretty sure most people wouldn't expect that.
No, 90% of the time in exploration you're unsuccessful. Pretty much.
And if you get one or two, you get excited.
Yeah, that's right.
But I'm pretty sure when you saw 12, you go,
yeah.
Are these numbers correct?
Yeah. Now when we plotted it all up, we went, oh, we see what's happening here. Yeah, because I went out to the lake as well and had a look, and I went, oh, okay, this quartz gravel, is it in situ or is it transported? And we could see it's very angular and coarse and very close to the. And then we saw some quartz in the bedrock as well, very nearby. We went, oh, that's transported. This is in situ. We're on top of something here. Yeah.
Oh, great. Looking forward to more news. And again, Ed, thanks for coming by.
It's always a pleasure.
And well, hopefully we'll have more results, and maybe one day Samso can be standing on Lake Gungari and having a coffee with Samso.
Yeah. All right.
But we're heading into summer, so that's very unlikely to happen.
Yes. Yeah, it's a bit hot out there inside.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Tom.